Good day, everyone. I am JEMAICA and Guzman. So for today, I will discuss about lingua franca and registers in spoken written language. Lingua franca is a language that is adopted as a common language between speakers whose native languages are different. It is widely used as a means of communication among speakers of other languages. English is the current lingua franca of international business, education, science, technology, diplomacy, entertainment, radio, seafaring, and aviation. A lingua also known as a bridge language, common language, trade language, auxiliary language, vehicular language, or link language. It is a language or dialect systematically used to make communication possible between groups of people who do not share a native language or dialect, particularly when not one of the speaker's native languages. For the next topic, it is all about registers in spoken written language. A register is defined as the way a speaker uses language differently in different circumstances. Registers is determined by factors as social occasion, context, purpose, and audience. There are 5 distinct registers. First, frozen. It refers to historic language or communication that is intended to remain unchanged, like a constitution or a prayer. For example, Holy Bible and Romeo and Juliet. Next, formal. It is used in professional, academic, or legal settings, where communication is expected to be respectful, uninterrupted, and restrained. Slang is never used and contractions are rare. For example, encyclopedia and Gray's Anatomy. Consultative. It is used in conversation when they are speaking with someone who has specialized knowledge or who is offering advice. Tone is often respectful, but may be more casual if the relationship is long-standing or friendly. Example of this is the local TV news broadcast. Casual. It is used when they are with friends, close acquaintances, and co-workers and family. For example, get-together, birthday party, and reunion. Intimate. It is usually between only 2 people and often in private. It is reserved for special occasions. For example, a word whispered in a lover's ear and an open-minded joke between 2 friends. Language registers are classified as: first, formal language register. It is more appropriate for professional writing and letters to a boss or a stranger. It is impersonal. It is not written for a specific person and without emotion. Example, business letters and reports. Rules in formal writing. A. Do not contractions. Cannot instead of can't. Have not instead of haven't. Is not instead of isn't. B. Spell out use numbers less than 100. Letter C. Write in third-person point of view. Avoid using the following I, you, we, and us. Letter D. Avoid using too much passive verbs. For example of passive and active. Passive, the bone was eaten by a dog. Active, the dog ate the bone. E. Avoid using slang, idioms, hyperboles, and cliches. F. Avoid abbreviations and acronyms. Letter G. Always write in complete sentences. H. Write longer, more complex sentences. Informal language register. It is conversational and appropriate when writing to friends and people you know well. Examples are diaries and journal. Here are the things that are included in informal writing: slangs and cliches, figurative language, symbols and abbreviations, acronym, incomplete sentences, short sentences, first person and second person pov, jokes, personal opinions, and the last one is extra punctuations. Neutral language register. It is not necessarily formal or informal. Example of these are ratings and reviews and school magazine or article. For additional information, please watch this video.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Lang Focus channel. This is just a quick mini video to answer a frequently asked question that I get on my channel, and that is, what is a lingua franca? Lingua franca is a phrase that I use a lot on the channel. A lingua franca is a language that is used for communication between people who speak different native languages. Here are a couple of example situations of when a lingua franca is necessary. For example, there are many languages spoken in a particular area or amongst different ethnic groups, and they need a language to communicate with one another. Another example, there is trade between two different countries that have no common language. Example 3, at a professional conference for experts from different countries who have different native languages. On a global scale, the current largest lingua franca is English, but there are other various lingua francas on a regional level and on a national level. An example of a regional lingua franca is the French language in Africa. There are a lot of different languages spoken in Africa, and in a large portion of the continent they use French as their language of communication, as their lingua franca. An example of a national lingua franca is in Pakistan, where there are various different languages spoken, but Urdu, the national language, is used as the lingua franca between those different groups. Another similar situation is in Philippines, where they have two lingua francas, or they mix the two lingua francas sometimes. They have Tagalog and English, and those are used as the lingua franca between people from different regions of the country. Sometimes there are both national lingua francas and more local lingua francas within a country. So if we take the example of Philippines, there is a region where Ilocano is the main language. So someone from the Ilocano speaking region meets someone from, for example, the Bisaya speaking region, they'll probably use the national lingua franca, which is Tagalog or English, or use both of them. But if that same person meets someone from the Ilocano speaking region who speaks a different language, like a minority language, then they'll probably use that local language, Ilocano, as the lingua franca. Because just in that one region there are various languages spoken, so the lingua franca you use depends on who you're speaking to. So you're sort of leveling up. If you speak to someone in your region, you can't understand them, use that regional lingua franca. If you speak to someone from a different region, use the national lingua franca. So it sounds all kind of complicated, but basically it means speak the language that helps you communicate with that person the best. The term lingua franca itself comes from the name of a language that was spoken in this way in the Mediterranean region for hundreds of years. It was kind of a Creole Romance language that had a lot of vocabulary from different Mediterranean languages mixed into it. One English source from 1632 referred to this language as bastard Spanish. So to wrap up and clarify, a lingua franca is a language that is used for communication between the speakers of different native languages. I hope that clarifies things. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.
What is a language register? Language register is the level of formality with which you speak. There are 5 language registers or styles. Deciding which language is appropriate depends on your audience, topic, and situation. It is important to remember that different situations and people call for different registers. So what are the 5 language registers? Number 1, frozen or static register. These are specific written or oral acts that never or rarely change, hence the name frozen or static. Because they don't change, they sometimes include old grammar or vocabulary. They are cultural, usually related to the religions, laws, or customs of the community. They are usually unidirectional, meaning they don't involve back and forth communication. This type of language is often learned and repeated by rote memory. Some examples include biblical verses, prayers, national anthems, religious books, laws, famous speeches, and the Bill of Rights. Number 2, formal register. This language is used in formal settings and is one way in nature. It is impersonal and often follows a prescripted format. The speaker uses complete sentences, avoids slang, and may use technical or academic vocabulary. It is likely that the speaker will use fewer contractions but opt instead for complete words. For example, they use have not instead of haven't. This is the register used for most academic and scientific publishing. Examples of formal register includes business presentations, research paper, essays in schools, interviews, TED Talks, and announcements. Number 3. Consultative register. It is a two-way communication used in a conversation. People use this register often in conversation when they're speaking with someone who has specialist knowledge or is offering advice. In other words, this is the register we use when consulting an expert such as a doctor. The language used is more precise and the tone is often respectful. Examples are teachers with students, lawyers talking to a client, doctor to a patient, superior to subordinate, and many others. Number 4. Casual register. This is informal language used by peers and friends. Slang, vulgarities, and colloquialisms are normal. It's probably the one you think of when you consider how you talk with other people, often in a group setting. And since this is a group language, one must be member to engage in this register, like buddies, teammates, chats and emails and blogs, and letters to friends. Number 5. Intimate register. This communication is private. It is the language used between persons who share a close relationship or bond. This register would take into account certain terms of endearment, slangs, or expressions whose meaning is shared with a small subset of persons. For example, lovers having special terms of endearment, mothers giving pet names to their children based on some character trait, and best friends formulating slangs based on some shared past experience. Intimate language may be something as simple as an inside joke between two college friends or a word whispered in a lover's ear. As a rule, one can usually transition from one language register to an adjacent one without encountering repercussions. However, skipping one or more levels is usually considered inappropriate and even offensive. So what is the importance of knowing when and how to move between registers? A speaker may move from one register to another with ease. For example, it is not uncommon for you to address your classmate casually and then adopt a more consultative register when speaking with your teacher. If one register is expected and another is presented, the result can be either that offense is taken or a comic response. For example, on the TV show Big Bang Theory, Sheldon's character often uses the higher consultative register with his friends, as well as everyone else. He sometimes seems stuck in the world of high-level vocabulary, unable to speak in the lower casual register that his friends use among themselves. The result is comedic. The audience laughs at his social awkwardness and inability to understand that he can and should adapt his speech to different contexts. It is important to understand the differences between registers so you can use language that is appropriate for a particular situation. If your register is too high, you may come across as being snobby, pretentious, or arrogant. If your register is too low, you can come across as being inappropriately informal or too friendly. Knowing what various registers are, how to differentiate between them, and when to use which one increases your chances of being accepted by groups and speakers in a variety of contexts.
That will be all for my report. I hope you learned something. Thank you.